So today, lads, we're going to talk a little bit about the fourth quarter, and we're going to be talking a little bit about how the Atlanta Dream, in my opinion, just had no answer for Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever in that fourth quarter. And realistically, for quite a bit of the second half, they had no answer for an aggressive.
The Atlanta Dream's coaching staff looked completely stunned because they had no answer for Caitlin Clark. And truthfully, they're not the first. Time and time again, coaches walk in confident and leave confused, overwhelmed by just how dominant Clark really is. By the time the Fever wrapped up their commanding 99-82 win, you could read it in the Dream sidelines body language. No plan, no adjustments, and absolutely no clue how to stop the Caitlin Clark takeover.
Let me say this about the Atlanta Dream. Y'all was hanging in there for 2 quarters, but then y'all ran out of gas. Cause you know why? The Indiana Fever ran y'all out y'all own building, and it was a sight to see. Y'all was huffing and puffing, trying to get some air and find some extra wind, and y'all couldn't.
This is exactly what you get when players make the mistake of calling her the 9th best point guard. Caitlin Clark doesn't waste time clapping back online or chasing headlines. She lets her game speak. The noise? Ignored. The rankings? Irrelevant. She shows up, locks in, and dominates. While the critics talk, she delivers wins. Loudly, clearly, and effortlessly. Right there on the hardwood where it matters most.
Today, there's no surprise that the Indiana Fever looked best tonight when the offense was ran through Caitlin Clark. There's no surprise that the offense looked best tonight when we pushed the ball off of a make, pushed the ball off of a miss. There's no surprise that the Indiana Fever looked best tonight when Caitlin Clark was surrounded by players that don't have an ego, surrounded by players that said, I'm going to be MVP of the WNBA this year. You see how easy it is when you just let Caitlin play ball and others follow suit?
What we saw against the Atlanta Dream wasn't just a game. It was a declaration. This was Caitlin Clark finally unleashed, running the offense at her speed, setting the tone, and putting her stamp on every possession. She didn't need to drop 30 to dominate, just 12 points, but 9 dazzling assists and complete command of the floor told the real story. For the first time, the system flowed through her, and the result? Total control, complete chaos for Atlanta, and a masterclass in tempo and leadership.
They made sure Caitlin Clark had the ball in her hands. She became the creator of offense. That's what we've been saying. Her and Aaliyah Boston, I believe it was 4 times, got the Stockton-Malone 2-man game working. Dantas got involved at one point with Caitlin Clark. Caitlin was still off on her shooting tonight.
The most remarkable part? Stephanie White finally handed Caitlin Clark the keys, fast-paced, aggressive, and running the show on her terms. She didn't even need to be lights out from 3 to make a statement. The Dream coach came in thinking he was ready for her, but what he wasn't ready for was a fully unleashed Caitlin Clark running at full speed and setting the entire game on fire.
Even when she wasn't exactly getting when it wasn't her putting the ball in the basket or her showing up on the stat sheet, she was burning Jordan Canada. And people don't understand how good Jordan Canada is on defense. She was absolutely burning Jordan Canada. Canada could not stay in front of her. And that is a big thing. That is genuinely a big, big thing. That if you can't stay in front of her, it creates a space for everybody else. And there were some hockey assists. There was good ball movement. There was a lot of things. There was a lot of real positives when it came to Caitlin Clark today.
You know what's beautiful about all this? The Atlanta Dream coaching staff likely poured hours into film study, defensive planning, and drawing up every scheme imaginable to slow down Caitlin Clark. They probably talked about traps, full court pressure, and making her uncomfortable on every possession. But when the final buzzer sounded and the scoreboard flashed 99-82 in the Fever's favor, all that prep went out the window. The coach stood there, stunned. His team had just been taken apart piece by piece by the same player critics laughably called the 9th best point guard in the league.
Obviously, tough game. I thought we had a good first half. We were really competitive. Second half we just had so many defensive breakdowns, and give them credit. They were getting extra possessions, and those extra possessions were turning into points just about every single time. So, just valuing ending their possession. It's not enough to force a tough shot. We got to come down with the ball. And then, we had some defensive breakdowns that they made us pay for. They were able to extend the lead. And then at the end, we had to, do some gambling and do some things that really were not that.
If you are enjoying, please leave a like and subscribe our channel. This isn't just a one-time thing, folks. Coaches across the WNBA have been left baffled after facing Caitlin Clark. Remember when opposing coaches thought they had her figured out? When they believed her college dominance wouldn't translate to the pros? Instead, she's consistently proving that she's not just adjusting to the WNBA, she's redefining excellence at this level. The irony is striking. These same coaches who changed their entire defensive game plan to contain her, who treat her like a prime Michael Jordan, still ranked her as the 9th best guard in the league. They guard her fiercely, celebrate trying to take her out, and downplay her influence whenever possible. But when it counts most, under the brightest lights, those same coaches and defenders are the ones left looking foolish. Clark continues to rise, and her impact is impossible to ignore.
How the Atlanta Dream were able to really neutralize Caitlin Clark in the first half. And I know Caitlin Clark had 5 first half assists, but they were able to neutralize Caitlin Clark's impact on the game in that first half. And in the second half, regardless of the box score numbers, how Caitlin completely took over. So the big way they were able to neutralize Caitlin Clark, and I think it was almost an issue with Stephanie White as much as anything, is they were...
Against the Atlanta Dream, something truly special happened. Stephanie White finally embraced what Iowa fans have known all along. Caitlin Clark is most dangerous when she's allowed to control the game's pace and flow. Throughout this season, we watched White attempt to fit Clark into a system that didn't suit her unique skill set. Frustration was visible on Clark's face when she was relegated to standing in the corner while others brought the ball up court, but in this game, everything shifted. White realized that trying to contain Clark's natural instincts was like trying to cage a hurricane. When you have a once-in-a-generation talent on your team, you don't force her into a box. You build your entire system around her. And that's exactly what we saw happen. An acknowledgement that Clark's style is unstoppable when given the freedom to lead.
You saw Clark sort of gaining her rhythm as the game went along, sort of returning to her form as the game went along, finding that pep in her step as the game went along, even though the shooting numbers were tour dates again, and she's got to find that shooting stroke at some point. Look, it can't go on all year, but you understand where some of those struggles come from when you deal with a quad injury and then a groin injury, and you're thrust back into the lineup and you're trying to find your way. But I do think it was the way that Clark found her way to the basket that was the difference in this game, really. That was what changed the dynamic.
The Dream coach could only watch as Caitlin Clark ran the show like a maestro, conducting the Fever's offense with absolute precision. She carved up the defense, threading impossible passes, creating looks out of thin air and adjusting on the fly in ways Atlanta couldn't keep up with. Even when her threes weren't dropping, she was still in full control. What made it even more impressive? The way she elevated everyone around her. That's the part critics conveniently ignore. Clark doesn't just play well herself, she makes others better. And against the Dream, she turned the whole team into a masterpiece.
One bad game. It's been an inconsistent ride for Indiana and for Clark as well, who's had to fight through a lot of injuries. But I think the encouraging thing from Cece was the fight that she showed on the floor. Clearly, she's not quite at 100%, still working her way back, hasn't found her 3-ball yet, but what she did was attack. She used the physicality against the defenders by putting her head down and going to the basket. That opened things up for her playmaking, which of course is another genius aspect of her game. Once that started clicking, the Fever ran away with things. Sophie Cunningham was everywhere. Clark had it going with Aaliyah Boston again. Kelsey Mitchell was cooking. And all of a sudden, you look up and the Fever are lighting up the score.
When Caitlin Clark plays her brand of basketball, fast, free, and in full control, the entire Fever roster levels up. The pace quickens, the floor opens, and suddenly everyone eats. Kelsey Mitchell starts getting cleaner looks. Aaliyah Boston finds more room to work in the paint. Sophie Cunningham? Wide open on the perimeter like it's shoot-around. The Dream coach had no answer for this version of Clark because this version can't be contained. When she's confident, when she's dictating tempo, when she's empowered to be the floor general that lit up college basketball at Iowa, she doesn't just play well, she elevates. That's when she stops being just a star and becomes something even harder to define, transcendent.
They were manhandling Caitlin Clark early in that game. Like, they had two hands on her. They were fully getting into the we are grabbing her and we don't really care. Like, that was their goal. Their goal was they were out there to maul Caitlin Clark. They had they had absolutely no intention of doing anything other than mauling.
And let's talk about that ninth best point guard nonsense for a moment. The cognitive dissonance is stunning. These coaches spend hours preparing for her. They design specific defensive schemes just to slow her down. They lose sleep worrying about how to contain her impact, and then they turn around and vote her as the ninth best guard in the league. It's either pure jealousy or complete delusion, because their actions on the court tell a completely different story. The truth is, coaches don't know how to defend her, and neither do players. She's only going to get better with more momentum from more games. Every time she steps on the court, she's adding new dimensions to her game. Every time opponents think they've found a way to stop her, she unveils a new weapon in her arsenal. What we're witnessing is the evolution of a player who was already great, becoming something even more special. The college version of Caitlin Clark was impressive, but this professional version, the one who's learning to navigate double teams, who's adjusting to the physicality of the WNBA, who's developing chemistry with new teammates, this version is downright scary for opposing coaches.
And this was a really nice all-around game from the Indiana Fever. And some may ask, well, Rhodes, do you feel better about Stephanie White? No, not at all. Because until she proves night in and night out she's willing to put the ball into Caitlin Clark's hand and let her be the creator and innovator on offense, I will not be sold. I will not be sold. The fact is, Caitlin's going to start knocking these shots back down at some point. And all of a sudden, her statistics are going to blow up.
The Atlanta Dream coach's speechless reaction tells us everything we need to know about where Clark truly ranks among the league's elite. You don't game plan that extensively for the ninth best anything. You don't lose sleep over the ninth best anything. You don't completely alter your defensive philosophy for the ninth best anything. Stephanie White deserves credit for finally recognizing what many of us have been saying all season, that Caitlin Clark is most effective when she's playing her natural game. The fast-paced, up-tempo style that made her a legend at Iowa is the same style that makes her nearly unstoppable at the professional level. When she's allowed to push the pace, when she's given the freedom to create, when she's not constrained by rigid offensive schemes, she becomes the player that coaches have nightmares about defending. The beauty of Clark's performance against Atlanta wasn't just in the statistics, though her 9 assists and overall floor leadership were impressive. It was in the way she controlled the emotional flow of the game. Every time Atlanta seemed to build momentum, Clark would make a play that shifted the energy back to Indiana. Every time the Dream looked like they might make a run, Clark would find a way to stem the tide.
Instead of trying to put a square peg in a round hole, this was a tale of two halves. A tale of two halves. A half where the Indiana Fever let Jordan Canada have wide open shots, and a half where they decided to play defense and shut Jordan Canada down and not let Ryan Howard get off. Interesting. A half where We had Caitlin off ball and sitting a lot. Sitting on the bench, rotting away in the first half. And the second half where, oh my God, she's in the game. Oh my God, they're giving her the ball.
This is what elite point guards do. They don't just score points or rack up assists. They control the pulse of the game. They determine when to speed up, when to slow down, when to take over personally, and when to get their teammates involved. Clark demonstrated all of these qualities against Atlanta, and the Dream coach was left with no answers. The most frustrating part for opposing coaches is that Clark's impact extends far beyond the box score. Her presence on the court changes how defenses have to operate. Teams can't help off their assignments because she'll find the open player. They can't sag back in a zone because she'll torch them from three-point range. They can't press her full court because she'll use her size and vision to find teammates for easy baskets.
This year. And it's just, all right, I'm going to accept that contact. I'm going to go through it, and I'm going to score on you. And one. Put the points on the board. You know, Caitlin Clark doing it there. Here's a closer look at that play to sort of give you, you know, an idea of what took place. And the you know, she accepts the contact, gives some back herself, and ultimately gets the bucket. By the way, you know, some size on that Dream team, obviously, with Griner inside, and Jones got in foul trouble, which helped.
This multi-dimensional impact is what separates truly elite players from merely good ones. Clark doesn't just beat you one way, she beats you in whatever way the game dictates. If you take away her three-point shooting, she'll find her teammates. If you take away her passing lanes, she'll attack the rim. If you send help defenders, she'll make the right read every time. The Atlanta Dream coach learned this lesson the hard way. His team entered the game with a solid defensive game plan, but by the end of the night, they had been thoroughly outclassed by a player who was supposedly ranked 9th among her peers. The final score of 99-82 doesn't even tell the full story of how completely the Fever controlled that game once Clark was allowed to operate freely. What makes this even more impressive is that Clark accomplished all of this while still dealing with the lingering effects of her recent injury concerns. She's been managing various ailments throughout the season, yet she continues to perform at an elite level. Lesser players would use injuries as an excuse for diminished performance, but Clark has used them as motivation to find new ways to impact winning.
And give them credit, they were getting extra possessions, and those extra possessions were turning into points just about every single time. So, you know, just valuing ending their possession. It's not enough to force a tough shot. We got to come down with the ball. And then, you know, we had some defensive breakdowns that they made us pay for. They were able to extend the lead. And then at the end, we had to, you know, do some gambling and do some things that really we're not that equipped to do. And they made us pay for that as well. And that kind of, you know, made the game a little more lopsided.
The message to the rest of the WNBA couldn't be clearer. Caitlin Clark isn't just surviving, she's thriving. She's not adjusting to the league, she's redefining it. And for the coaches still clinging to outdated scouting reports, still ranking her as the 9th best anything, prepare to be humbled. Just ask the Atlanta Dream coach, who watched in silence as Clark dismantled his game plan and left his team grasping at air. Clark isn't just the best point guard in the league. She's the engine, the tempo setter, the game changer. Coaches can't scheme her out. Players can't slow her down. And the scariest part? She's just getting started. With every game, every possession, she gains confidence, rhythm, and control. That's momentum you can't coach against. The Dream staff learned that the hard way, but they won't be the last. Caitlin Clark is a problem no one in the WNBA knows how to solve. Not yet. And until they do, they'll keep ending games the same way. Speechless, stunned, and completely outmatched. If you enjoyed leaving a like and subscribing, more videos are on the screen now.